In the flat Lincolnshire marshes, alone, in the middle of nowhere, lies an isolated, abandoned church. It's nicknamed the Demon Church, and it is supposed to be a very haunted church. It became a popular site for groups of Satanists in the 1970s and 1980s. In 2004, it was reported to be a place where animal sacrifices had taken place and occult ceremonies. Several ghost hunters have reported unusual goings-on at the building. It is said to be the centre for unexplained paranormal activity. Chicken carcasses with their throats slit have been found inside. Pentagrams were sketched into stonework. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly monk on site, seeing odd sounds and hearing sounds of storms in calm weather and hearing strange, unexplained noises at night. Rings of candles and salt have been left inside the building, while satanic graffiti has adorned the walls. In 2004, it is reported that the locals were so disturbed by the paranormal reports and Satan worshipping that a meeting was called between the church leaders and the church's conservation trust about what action to take. They even discussed demolishing this church. But historically, this church is too important to dismantle, and it is also historically too important to let fall into disrepair. So far, Church's Conservation Trust have spent more than 13 grand in repairs on St Bodolph's Church since 2015. Previous damage to the church also include having its doors set on fire, bricks pulled from its walls and roof, and deliberate cracking of gravestones. Unfortunately, there are still family and friends of people that are alive buried in the graveyard, and the level of vandalism that this church has had is very upsetting. And what most people seem to forget is this church is still actually consecrated grounds. Unfortunately, the level of vandalism in this church now means that this church is now the second most vandalised church in Britain. In the chancel floor is a gravestone of the vicar of the church who died in 1413. Two gravestones of the Weddell family that died in 1737 and 1799. The walls have been stripped of the plaster and the bones of the church have since been revealed. Broken upper section of medieval gravestones adorn the floors. Medieval coffins, and there's even a sarcophagus lid. The stone lids that went on top of the sarcophaguses are littered across the floor. They were often adorned with a sculpture or an inscription. As with all folklore, there is a bit of truth in what everybody is saying, but not like everybody thinks. So, in 654 AD, Botolph founded the Benedictine monastery of Ivanhoe with the support of King Anna of East Anglia. The monastery may have even been dedicated to the king. In finding the monastery, Botolph chose a wild barren fen reputedly haunted by demons. Ivanhoe was surrounded by water and foul-smelling marsh gases that produced the disturbing nighttime glow. Some early accounts maintained that this was the work of ghosts and devils. It was said that the evil spirits that lived there were disturbed by Botolph's arrival. They had been there for so long, they said, that they thought they could stay there forever, and they actually had no other place to go. They felt that the saint was acting horribly by disturbing them, but Botolph, he didn't care. Now the monks built several structures and drained the marshland. Botolph became revered for his ability to expel the bogs of their devils. He died on June the 17th, 608 AD, after a long illness. There are lots of accounts of St. Botolph, but nobody is sure where his monastery was built. After his death, his bones were moved around to protect them from raiders and as a source of protection for local people against the Marsh monsters. Now, St. Botolph's association with hauntings and demons continued long after his death. And that includes this church, as this church dates from the early 13th century and it is nicknamed the Demoned Church. Unfortunately, St. Botolph's bones were lost during the dissolution, so we can't help rid the site of spirits and Satanists, which is probably how the legend began. As the bones were missing, all the places that he had exorcised of their demons were no longer protected.